listening to Xposed Living, Be Ageless, the podcast where we drop the masks, flip the script, and talk real life, real love, and real leadership unfiltered. I'm Stacey Vanthuyne, coach, speaker, entrepreneur, and founder of the Xposed Living movement that's redefining what it means to live, lead, and grow at any age. We talk identity, reinvention, belief, and freedom from the bedroom to the boardroom. Yes, we go there. This is not about staying young. This is about waking up. So if you're done with the shoulds and craving more fun, more freedom, more truth, more you, then grab your favorite drink, your bestie, maybe your journal. It's time. Let's get exposed. Welcome back to Xposed Living, Be Ageless. Unscripted conversations with me, Stacey Vanthuyne, host, founder of Xposed Living. Today's episode's a little different. It's just me. No guests, no script, just a real, raw conversation about identity, endurance, and what it means to me to live fully, even when it's kind of uncomfortable. Actually, I would like to say especially when it's uncomfortable. Xposed Living to me was born out of this need to help people find a platform to feel that they could step into their bold, authentic self at whatever age and express what it is that's on their heart. Like to truly live authentically. I remember when someone said to me, just live authentically, Stacey. And I was just like, I've been caught up in what other people think of me for so long. I don't even know what it means to be authentically me. And as I kind of went through this journey of exploring what authenticity, sometimes my words just don't quite come out right. Some people will say, I'll just go on a slight tangent. Do you speak another language? I do not. English is my first language. I did grow up, however, in Saskatchewan. So potentially, anyways, getting back to being authentic. I found through my journey of increasing my awareness around what it meant to be Stacey over 40 is really when my personal development journey took, ramped up in speed. I found it was uncovering and getting through the masks and the beliefs. So ones that still suited me and I wanted to continue to wear, and which ones I'd outgrown. And not feeling any shame or guilt or disappointment, not feeling like I had to explain myself to why it was that those masks or those beliefs no longer fit. I think one of the most powerful truths in my journey is that I came to realize that just because we had a belief in the past doesn't mean that it has to dictate us or we have to believe it for the rest of our lives. And these types of conversations, I call them unscripted because truthfully, I don't let my guests know what the questions are going to be about it. They send me a bio. I create the bio that will say for the intro. I create the outro. And then we just get into a conversation because I wanted to have a podcast that was more than just information. I mean, you can read the information in books. I mean, we're in the age where information is readily available. Like you saying, I don't know how, is just not a valid excuse. Now, just because though you gather the information doesn't mean that you'll execute on it. And I find the older we get, the more we know and the less we do. Why? Well, this is part of today's story. It's around your identity. It's around your beliefs. And today I want to share how in the recent month, in the last couple of weeks, I've crossed two finish lines, one physically and one spiritually. The first that I'm going to go into in a moment was finishing my first Ironman 70.3. If you don't know what an Ironman 70.3 is, that's in miles. In kilometers, it's a 1,900 meter swim, a 90K bike, and a 21K run. Again, not being American, I should know this by now, but it's like a 1.3-mile swim. I believe a 63K or 63-mile bike, and then a half marathon, which is 13 miles. So in total, it equals 70.3 miles. So hence the name Ironman 70.3. It was in Washington State, a mixture of swimming, biking, and running. And I had made a commitment to myself in January that this was something I wanted to complete in my 50th year. I turned 50 this year, and I've never done a triathlon outside of one, and it was like a sprint, very short. And I wanted to take on a goal that was bigger than anything I'd done today. You know, part of it was to inspire others to reach further than they ever have. To stop using the excuse that many of us who have, oh, I'm just getting old, so I can't do that anymore. Or, oh, I'm in menopause. Or, oh, fill in the blank. My business is not quite where I want it to be. I'm going through a divorce. Whatever reason we give to ourselves that stop us from taking action on what it is that we truly want. Whatever reason it is that stops us from doing what we know we want to do in certain cases. And it really led me on this journey of discovery of the difference between goal setting and goal achievement, and how in order to complete that race, I had to adopt a new identity of myself. As I had become really aware of where my time was being spent, as you can appreciate that when you're doing a race that has such distances, you're going to have to train, and you're going to have to train a lot differently than you have in the past. And, although fitness has always been a top priority for me, my physical health is as important as my emotional and spiritual health. I had never tested my body like I was about to in the upcoming months when I made this decision back in January 2025 to compete in September in this Washington Tri-Cities race. So I want to talk in this episode about that difference between goal setting and goal achievement, because I think a lot of us have worthy goals. I think a lot of us have goals that we want. But what stops so many of us from achieving that, in my experience, has been really that dedicated commitment to it, the belief in knowing that if we truly want something, if it was placed on our heart for a reason, we can achieve it. But here's the kicker. We can't achieve it being who we were, or otherwise we'd have already achieved it. So what does that mean? And how do we level up our identity, become aligned with the person that we need to be to attract the necessary resources, the timing, the people in our lives to help us to create that? Because there's another lesson that I've learned, is that we can't do it alone. We weren't meant to do hard things alone. And yet we also can't expect somebody else to do it for us. So there's this balance of knowing when to ask for help and when to literally take radical responsibility to create it all. So I want to walk you through or share with you my experience. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see that I'm wearing and sporting my new hoodie, the Ironman 70.3 finisher. Prior to the race, truthfully, I felt already like I had finished it. I had to. Because for me, I live from the goal. So I had already replayed that story in my mind so many times that when I started the race, it wasn't a matter of will I. I knew I would cross the finish line. It was, can I do it in the time that I really want to do? And how much pain was I willing to endure? How much could I push my body? And that excited me, I think that for some people, my way of living, which is, demanding from myself to get 1% better every day, or having that expectation that that's what I'm going, could seem maybe exhausting. But personally, I find it exhilarating. I believe that we're spiritual beings. I believe the essence of ourselves is for further expansion and growth. And when we don't continually challenge ourselves at whatever age, is the moment we start going backwards. When we start feeling stuck, when we start looking outside of ourselves, to feel the fulfillment that ultimately was placed in our hands to fulfill our own heart, our own love, and then to spread it out, And so I think it's important with Xposed Living that I do solo episodes now and again, so you can learn a little bit about me and my journey and why I feel so passionate about this. And hopefully it resonates with you as a Gen X, or, as babies from the 70s, raised in the 80s and 90s, and Gen Y, I love you too. I think you're right beside us. Is that how do we overcome these beliefs, and many of the ones that we didn't even choose ourselves, to create more? How do we get outside of this comfort zone that so many of us get stuck in? And truthfully has served us to a certain level to continue to feel that fulfillment from the further expansion and growth that we take. How do we overcome the belief or the thought of, well, this is all I can do? Is this as good as life gets? What more is there for me? And we start to evaluate what we can lose. We start looking at more of what we can lose or what might go wrong than what could go right and what we could gain. And I personally believe it's because, we've worked so hard in certain areas to get stuff. So we're afraid of it being lost. But listen to what I'm saying. If we know something's meant for us, how can we lose it? We only gain. And I think that this is a challenge with the world today, is that we're so focused on what's missing and coming from lack that it stops us from putting out what it is that we truly want. I had an incredible conversation earlier today with Jennifer LaGuardia. Her episode will be out in a few weeks. And Jen and I were talking about, faith. Faith is one of the pillars of Xposed Living. There's 6 of them. Faith, health, both physical and emotional, family and parenting, relationships, both personal and at work. I'm somebody that has been, in the dating world all in her 40s. So I wanted to explore and share unscripted conversations of dating post-divorce, parenting, like I said, with that third value of family and parenting. The 5th pillar is business and finance. And then ultimately money. I think that a lot of us carry some shame and guilt when it comes to money and truthfully around parenting and relationships and sex. These are conversations that we have shame and guilt around. And how can we attract something that we truly want when we still feel like bogged down by some heaviness around it? And the last pillar was lifestyle, so that you'll also hear conversations around fashion and, music and different things like that. So really the gamut of life is my goal in creating Xposed Living, that we could come on. The conversations that you'd have with a friend over coffee, we'll have on this show. They're unscripted. And so sometimes you may hear stuff that doesn't align with what you're saying, but I think that this is really needed in the world, that there's no right or wrong. There's no black or white. There's just different perspectives. And can we lean in and get curious about these perspectives to explore how we can unite, even when we may come from different thoughts around it? So with my conversation with Jen today, it was really like I was sharing how I was leading this coaching class, and I said to people, how many of you think of yourself as great manifestors? And nobody raised their hands. And I was like, wait a second. Do you mean you don't believe that you're a powerful manifestor? Is that because you're not getting what you want in your life? You haven't received the money that you want? You haven't found that man or woman of your dreams yet? Or, you want so much for your kids to do X and they're doing Y? Why don't you see yourself as a powerful manifestor, a creator of your own life? And is it because you're not getting what you want? And basically I got some head nods, but I want us to understand that when it comes to manifesting and creating what comes into our lives, we're doing it all the time. But ask yourself, where are my thoughts? What am I thinking and attaching the most feeling with? Is it the things that I want, or is it what I don't want? Because the universe is immoral. It will give you whatever you're thinking about. But often we are more emotionally connected to what could go wrong, why it won't work. The challenges that we have coming from lack, separation, scarcity mindset, that more of that comes into our lives. And yet if we can start to recognize this, and every time we get that worry or doubt, smack it out and literally say, old story. And start focusing on what it is that we want, why we can do it. Start thinking of all the reasons why you can create what it is that you want, why I could get across the finish line for that Ironman. Then that will come from us. And it's just literally reprogramming ourselves. I mean, we'll buy a new Apple Watch, we'll update our computer hardware, but how many times have you taken the opportunity to sit down and reevaluate your beliefs? How many times have you decided to reevaluate who you are, what you want? And ask yourself, is this still in alignment with, the way I want to live the rest of my life? And that's really what it came to for me in this 50 years. Like, how do I want to live my life? What do I want my physical health to be? And I thought to myself, you know what, Stacey, I want to get in the best shape that I've ever been at. And I believe I can. And I started to think of all the reasons why I could versus I can't. And guess what happened? I started to act differently. I started to show up differently. I let things go in my life that were taking my time, that wasn't moving the needle towards what I wanted. Now, it's taken me some time to get here, and I'll tell you, I'm not perfect. None of us are. We're not looking for perfection, but we're looking for that 1% improvement. We're looking for us to start becoming more aware of what we're thinking. We can't control what goes on outside of us, but we can control how we respond to it. We can control how we think. So having an exposed life to me means taking ultimate responsibility for everything, the good, the bad, the whatever. And so when you're manifesting, if you don't like the shitty things that are coming into your life, stop thinking about them. All right, now I'll get off my soapbox on that and start to tell you about and share with you about my race and how it kind of it progressed and how it became one of the best days of my life. When I was turning 50, my mom and dad said to me, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, I want you to be there. I'm doing this big thing and I would love for you to share in it with me. And so I was joined at this race with my parents and my daughter, and my partner was training me. So he was also coming to support me. And taking you back to race weekend, we left Edmonton. We started to make the 14-hour trek to Washington Tri-Cities. If you've never been, this is a beautiful drive. We went through the Rockies. We stopped at Cranbrook to meet old friends for dinner. And we carried on the following day with my parents, crossed the border, got through it. Why are you coming here? Got my bikes in the back, said, we're going for this triathlon. My girls in the back seat. It was important for my girls, they're 17 and 14. I'd take them out of school, but I wanted them to really come and to get in the spirit and see. There was 2,300 athletes. So to see people of all different ages and races and abilities coming together to fulfill a dream that they have. It's not so much about competing against each other, but competing with ourselves. I set an internal goal. I wanted to finish the race under 5.5 hours. That's the goal. I will let you know in a short time, did I hit that goal? And if I did or not, did that determine the output? But I already felt like getting to the race line or like the start line was a win, right? Because again, it's not so much of whether or not you get the goal, the thing at the end, but it's who we become in the journey. I proved so much to myself in the training of it, of, how powerful I was, straight out. Like, I felt unstoppable. I would wake up and early in the morning and do things that I've never done. I would bike on a weekend for 5 or 6 hours. I hadn't biked for longer than 20 minutes prior to my training. Swimming I had done. I always say I went to university. I got a degree, but I really just swam. So I was a swimmer by trade. But let's also be honest, I graduated in 97. So it's been some time since I was in the pool. I feel like my whole life, though, was leading up to this training. I am a runner. I became a runner. I was never actually a runner growing up in school. My dad used to say, no wonder your feet are so wide and your feet are almost webbed because you can't run. You got to get in the pool and swim. But after I had my children, I started doing less aerobics. I was an aerobic instructor and more into running because it was just easy. I could get out and do it in between the girls' naps and work and stuff like that. And so I really taught myself to run, like to say, just like the same way I taught myself to drink red wine, which is something to practice. So you had to like develop a taste for. But I loved running. It allowed me to do something for myself and just get that endorphin high. So now learning to bike this season, putting them all together was amazing. All right, so on our way to Richland, Washington, we stopped in Coeur d'Alene, and I'll tell you about Coeur d'Alene later because I came back and I spent the week there. It is an incredible place. If you live in Coeur d'Alene, oh my gosh, I'm coming to visit every year. It's just fantastic. And we get into Richland, though, and it's time to register. And this is my first time, as well as my girls and my parents' first time really seeing this Ironman world. The energy was electric. The sun was shining. Everyone's smiling, nervous, checking out the river where we swim and everything. It was just super exciting. And the weather, like I said, was just perfect. Once we were registered, we went to our place. We're staying in Desert Aree. It was about 45-minute drive. And I tell you, getting there, it was a little bit nervous because there was some road construction. So what was supposed to be 45 minutes was stretched to an hour and a half, which made us kind of concerned about Sunday. But again, I just like sat back and said, everything's working out for me. It's going to be fine. And when it came to Sunday, after 2 beautiful days, it was becoming real. I was up at 3:30 in the morning to prep and to get our stuff together to go there. And you're literally going into this gated area that I'm telling you, you've got like a foot to put your bike and kind of all your transition stuff, like your running shoes, your bike shoes, your wetsuits and everything. And so it was just like the whole experience of that was something you can't really prepare yourself until you're there. But I wasn't worried about ending the race. I was just like focused on the experience. Thankfully, only that. But when we woke up in the morning on Sunday, that sun and that no wind that I had, quickly become accustomed to after spending a few days down before the race wasn't there. And in its place was rain, and in its place was wind, and in its place was this very cooler, cold almost temperature, especially when you get wet. And I think, again, this was a big learning of like, again, I can't control the elements. All I could control was how I showed up, was that mindset that I had created. This is already done, Stace. No matter rain or shine, you've got this. I trained 9 months for this moment. The early mornings, the long rides, as I had explained, that discipline, that commitment, that belief. And even with all that prep, though, I really tuned into like, this is more than physical, Stacey. You're going to have to dig deep. It is around mental endurance. And I share this, not for you guys who want to maybe do an Ironman, whether you do or not, but any goal that you set that's beyond what you know. These are the key things we need: belief, commitment, discipline. But if our why isn't greater than the why not, the old self, the why not will win. But for me, I was locked in. My why was big. My parents were there. My kids were there. I wanted to show them that age has no limits. It's a mindset. And if you want it, you can do it. And as I like even sharing this right now, I literally, I'll get emotional because I just know in my own life, and for many of you that are listening to this show, there's been times where you may question that. Maybe you tried something and it didn't work. And then you tried again, and it didn't work. And you kept trying. It was like that fly trying to get out of the window. So it just didn't work. And just like that fly dies on the windowsill, trying the same thing, just working harder. Sometimes our dreams do the same thing. But I want to tell you, it's not about trying harder. It's about adopting an identity that's in alignment with what it is that you want. It's about seeing things from a fresh perspective, about getting uncomfortable and recognizing that we don't always get to control the how, but we can control how we show up. And I that was so critical to me. There were moments on the bike, I'll be honest with you. So my swim went wonderfully. It was a river swim. It was fast. And I came out of the water in the top 100. I was second in my age group coming out of the swim under 21 minutes, which was fantastic. I think my hundreds were 105, which in, swimming at all, like I don't even think when I was competing professionally not professionally, but competing more frequently and in university days when I was training all the time, that my 100 splits weren't always 105. So I definitely had some support of the current, let me tell you that. But when I got onto that bike and the wind was literally slamming on my face, and there's hills, I don't know if you've been to the Washington areas, but one of the reasons I also wanted to go there was because there's wine. And so I wanted to go to wine country afterwards. But there were moments on that bike when the headwinds were just slamming me and the rain was on my face and people are passing me, because one of the most challenging parts about coming out of the water quick is the strong bikers are going to maybe pass you. So you have to take a little bit of humble pie. But I was humble and I'm hungry. And those are my two main things that keep me going. I mean, remain humble and keep being hungry. And yet there would be these times where I'm like, what the frick am I doing? I remember there's one hill. I was like pedaling the hardest I could, easiest gear. Wind is against my face. And I might be going 10 kilometers. And I was just like screamed out like, enough, right? But then I reminded myself, this is what I came for. Like, this is it. It wasn't about whether or not I finished under 5.5 hours. And truthfully, I finished at 5 hours, 42 minutes and 49 seconds. But who's counting? And don't you kid yourself. I am so competitive against being my best, beating my best, that I will do it again and I will get under there. But whether, like, there's so many different elements that control that, and I understand that, but that's still what keeps me going, right? So it was also to test my limits, to meet myself, to prove to myself. I kept saying to myself, I am worthy of greatness and capable of incredible things. And sometimes my intellectual mind will say, yes, you believe that. But if there's times where I'm giving up or times where I'm not seeing it through, you know what? My subconscious mind, my identity, the thing that is at cause for all of our results, still needs some support with that belief. So I tell myself that again and again, because the only way to upgrade the programming in your life is through that constant spaced repetition of telling yourself who you are at your goal. And in order to be the person I am at my goal, she is strong. She is powerful. She doesn't let her outside world stop her from creating what it is that she wants. So to prove that the goal wasn't just to survive this, it was to become through it. And that really brings to my truth around goal setting and achievement. Most people set goals from where they are, not from where they want to be. It's like, I'll work towards it. And it's almost like if you're in your car right now and driving, you can almost visualize a staircase of every step brings me closer to my goal. But when we see goal achievement like that, we're still separate from it. I see goal achievement at me at the top of the stairs with my goal. And although my physical results may not show me that today, I start to be her, to adopt the behaviors, to adopt the mindset of somebody with my goal achieved. Because it's not once I get this, then I will be. You see this all the time. If you're waiting for the money to be in your account before you feel abundant, if you're waiting for the person of your dreams to come into your life before you feel loved, you're going to be waiting a long time. The formula is be, do, have. Be the person. When you be the person, you start to do the things. When you do the things, you will acquire the things. And so many times we start looking at our results and letting our present results determine what we can do. Our present results are just a mere reflection of our past thinking. And this is why I say, if you could get what you want being who you are, you'd already have it. So regardless of what goal it is, whether it's in health, whether it's in money, whether it's in relationships, it has to be that we start to embody the feeling of the person before the physical evidence appears. And, a lot of us will say, I feel like an imposter. That's just such bullshit again. Stop giving yourself that crutch. Recognize that there's this opportunity for us to expand our awareness in the magnificence of us, in the power of us, ourselves. And when we can stop to just accept the belief that I am worthy as I am capable of great things, then I can start to act in a different way. And I also give out a new vibration, right? It's higher energy. It's positive. It's like when you're around somebody that only focuses on the bad, those manifestors that generate the crap that's coming into their lives, it is a heavy energy. When you're around someone that is like looking for the good, whatever we look for, we will find. Whatever we focus on expands. It's a fun place to be. You're going to start to attract more of, like I said, the resources, the people, the things, the knowledge you need to create what it is that you want. We don't get what we want. We get who we are. And through this process of the Ironman 73, I became a new person. And through that, I was able to achieve my goals. So, was it hard to wake up at 5 a.m, 4 a.m. sometimes, or do those bikes rides? Yeah. But I embraced it as like, Stace, you can't achieve what you want without doing these things. Because here's the other really important thing that I think is so important to recognize is that people that you admire that are doing things that you want to do, they're no different than you. The only difference is they made a decision, they decided to show up, and they may have different standards and habits of it. So get around the people that you want to do. If you want to do an Ironman, reach out to me. I can share some tips with you. I can share some of the mindset that had happened to me to get that. And that's how it goes. Because, like I said, the real shift, the one that changes everything, is when you start living from the end. When you realize the creation's already done. Now you just have to be her, be him. And when I decided to do the Ironman 70.3, I didn't hope I'd become an athlete capable of doing it. I became her first in my mind, in my habits, in my standards, in my discipline, in my level of commitment. I trained as a woman who'd already crossed that finish line. And then through time, effort, alignment, I caught up to her. And that's how identity works. You don't get clarity and then act. You act and clarity shows up. So let me ask you, where in your life are you waiting for clarity before you move? Where are you waiting to feel ready, quote, quote? What would shift it if you simply decided today to live from the end? If you just accepted what I was saying and decided to try it, to think like, to act like, to believe like the person who already achieved the thing you say you want. Now, that's what I did. And yet, even as someone who teaches this, I found myself asking, why do we do this in one area of our life and not others? But it proved to me, if I could do it in health, I can do it in business. If I can do it in business, I can do it in my relationships. Because how we do one thing is how we do it all. We adopt certain identities where belief feels safe and avoid others where risk feels raw. But identity work is about bringing it all into an alignment. So how we show up in one area becomes how we show up in all areas. I used to think that I was a procrastinator. I demonstrated through that I'm not a procrastinator. Sometimes I just need to level up my level of belief and commitment. The goal isn't just to finish the race. It's to become someone who's never stopped growing through them. And this is where I'm going to transition into the second finish line that I'm about to cross. Well, I would say I didn't cross it because I said yes to myself. And that's when I said yes to Thailand. Because this mission, it's another race. It's just a different kind. One that tests the heart more than the body. In October, and so today, when this podcast gets released, it'll be Thursday the 9th. And within a week, on the 15th, I'm leaving to travel with the Wholeness Journey to serve women who've survived human and sex trafficking. Women who've had choice taken from them. Women who are now rediscovering who they are, their worth, their faith, their voice. Truthfully, when I heard about this mission, I couldn't look away. Honestly, I said yes before I even knew what it was. It resonated with me, and I knew that it wasn't the most convenient time. I knew that it didn't make logical sense, but I have known now enough about this work that when it feels in alignment, I've got to say yes. I've got to start thinking of how I can get there, not why I shouldn't. And so when I heard about this, I just said yes. And then the impact of what they were doing just resonates so much. So again, I understand the guilt and shame that comes with this. I understand how we can stop ourselves from wanting and believing that we're worthy of more from our past. But we've got to stop focusing on our past. Our past is dead. We can't do anything to change that. And that's what I want to help these women understand. They've made the tough decision to leave the red light district in Bangkok and to go on another way of earning money. Wholeness Journey also partners with Sheer Love Foundation. And we're giving these ladies also the skill set of aesthetics. Sorry, I have to cough. We're going to hopefully take that out. So that they can, though, create more. But here's the thing. You can give somebody the skill, just like we can give you the information. But just because you have the skill or just because you have the information doesn't necessarily mean that you will do the work, that you will actually execute on it. So this is where I get to come and support them, is leveling up their own identities to know that regardless of their past, they're worthy of it. Because healing doesn't happen in silence. Because faith without action is empty. Because belief, real belief, demands movement. Exposed living is a movement. And I thought if I can train for 9 months to strengthen my body, then I can show up with the same commitment to strengthen someone else's spirit. Now, I just want to take a moment to talk about human and sex trafficking for a second. I think we think that it happens away from us. And, I live in Canada, I'm going to Thailand, but it's also here. The reality is these women and men aren't statistics. They're mothers, their daughters, their fathers, their sons, their sisters, their brothers. They don't need pity. They need presence. They need to know they're seen, that they're loved, and they're not alone. And that's why I've set a goal to raise $5,000 prior to me leaving, which means when this episode gets released, it's a short time. But you know what? The doors to donate never close. The link to donate, to partner with me, is in the show notes. It's also in my bio. We need to start bringing more awareness to this. And as a coach of Gen X, and as a founder of a movement that is for Gen X by Gen X, I also started to look into the stats of Gen Xers in human trafficking. And you know what? It's pretty surprising. There's still over 20% of people that are over the age of 40 that are still in this world. And many probably why they aren't, they're just not even here with us anymore. This is very personal to me. And I don't, you know what? In my past life, I used to have a hard time asking for help, but I'm asking for your help with this. I'm asking for you to partner with me. It's my invitation to you. Maybe your Ironman is in a race. Maybe it's a dream you've put on hold. A part of yourself you've silenced, or a calling that scares you because it's big, it's bold, and it's uncertain. It's outside of your comfort zone. But here's what I know. Clarity won't come first. Belief has to. Our actions will follow what we believe. So when we manifest what we truly believe on that deep subconscious level. So if things are coming into your life you don't want, it's not to blame. It's to go deeper with your own self. And maybe you hear this and it pulls on your heart talking about human trafficking, but you don't take the initiative to click the link. Ask yourself why. Why? Money's meant to be circulated. Money is energy. Bless that money. Bless these women. Support us in this movement. And I promise you, you will get that back to you 10 times. The moment you decide to live as if it's already down from the goal, that's when everything starts to shift. I talk like this and I share this because I know it. I'm living proof. And I understand how it can be hard to adopt this type of belief because it's not in alignment with your current programming, with your current way of living. But if you're listening to this and you've held on to this whole episode, it's because you have a desire in your heart for more. We all do. So isn't it time that you start acknowledging that desire? That you're worthy of it? And that honestly, by not bringing out the next level of expression, of expansion with yourself, is actually doing a disservice to the people that you love the most. How can you be an example to your kids and tell them to follow their dreams if you're not following yours? Our kids live by example. You know, I'm grateful for my family who stood with me in the rain cheering, for my partner, for my kids who believed in me. You know, they said your kids, they were freezing, but they were high-fiving everybody. Because you can't help but get into this new level of energy. And it's not just with Ironman, just using that as an example. You know, it's these people around me that when I felt weak, they brought me to feeling strong. But it was within me that I had to take those actions. This, to me, is exposed living. The race, the risk, the real, the unscripted. Putting more life in our life and refusing to settle for anything less. If today's message spoke to you, I'd love for you to share this episode. Follow the show. We're also on YouTube. Let's create this movement. And if you want to stand with me on this mission to help bring awareness and end human and sex trafficking, you can donate, as I've mentioned, through the link in the show notes or in my bio. Every dollar counts. Every gift says, I see you. You matter. And don't miss our recent episodes. This week, my episode with Todd Lawson dropped. One Day or Day One, Reinvention and Courage at every year. His story's phenomenal. He's a founder of Rise Outdoors, bringing the power of nature to people. He's written a book. He's traveled around the world on his motorcycle, and he's not slowing down in his 50s. In fact, I asked him, what does exposed living mean to you, Todd? And he was just like, that we go, Stace, that we go, that we move, and we make every day, day one. Stop saying one day, because that day will never come. Also, the episodes with Nancy, with Andrea, with Brian Post. If you're a parent, you've got to hear From Fear to Love. I'm telling you, it is one that I think it was almost like a little bit of a therapy session for myself when it came to parenting, I'll be honest. So if you want to see how we talk through that. With Jess Dahl. Jess is the founder, one of the founders of Wholeness Journey, who we're going to Thailand with. It is around having that faith, that awareness, that understanding of regardless of how old you are, age is just a number. That's it. What matters is your mindset. What matters is how you bring your energy to this world, and that you know you are worthy, that you're capable of greatness. And I can't wait to talk to you again on my next solo episode. I'll maybe do one from Thailand and share with you the women to give them a voice. Let them see that our past doesn't determine our future unless we let it. Get uncomfortable, friends. It's where the true growth happens. I promise you, where you felt the most fulfilled in your life was the times that you stretched the most. Stop being a watcher in your own life. Get onto the field and play. And until next time, keep living bold, keep getting exposed, and keep putting more life into your life. Live limitlessly. Be unscripted. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to talk to you soon. That's it for today's episode of Exposed Living, Be Ageless. But this is just the beginning. If this episode made you feel something, share it. Tag me. Send it to a friend. Let's start the conversation we can be having all along. No shame, no guilt. Unfiltered, raw, real, exposed. And if you're ready to go deeper, join us inside the Exposed Living Facebook community, where we take this work off the podcast and into real life. Know this, your change starts when your excuses die. Because this life, this one wild, ageless, unforgettable life is waiting on you. This is your time. This is your truth. This is Xposed Living.